An honest voice, an honest broker of opinion, a skeptic and a romantic. He validated things that you barely allowed yourself to believe, that there was hope and beauty in the world. He made you believe those things.
The thing about David is that he had 500,000 followers on Twitter, and if he was a newspaper, he'd be the 4th biggest newspaper in the world.
But look at his trajectory, right? Drug addict, life falling apart, took control of his life, worked his way up through the world of alternative newspapers, and ended up being better than almost everybody else here.
Why Times Square? Because you can find almost anything here. Every kind of person, opinion.
David was never boring. He was a pretty fascinating dude.
He was like a puzzle that was not quite, the pieces were there, but it wasn't tightened up, you know?
I mean, it's interesting if you read comments from people who criticize the Times a lot, you know, who don't like our journalism, they liked him.
He was a tremendously gifted writer. There was a crackle and a wit and a warmth in his prose.
He was a vivid writer and with great anecdotes, but again, that personality had something to do with that because he had a sparkle to him.
His sentences were so damn good, and he knew how to tell a story.
What I think he represented integrity that is both respectful of people, but never so enchanted with individuals, particularly people with power.
We haven't even gotten into the cultural issues, which I'm sure are not going to please you much at all.
His magic was honesty, but there was no fairy dust. There's no slickness about him.
But there was also a very clear journalistic work ethic and a meticulous and tireless reporting.
He was asking really good, intelligent questions with really good follow-ups. He would get stuff out of you that you weren't sure that you had known.
Let's cut to something a little more hard and fast. On December 11, 2008, your board received a letter.
He wrote an investigative piece about the leadership of Tribune Company. That was just fabulous. It shook up the whole company. When I asked him who his sources were, he just had it nailed.
Whatever he wrote, it came from a man who had a sense of responsibility and sometimes with it a sense of outrage.
And the New York Times, meanwhile, is writing about surfing.
The outrage, it was enchanting, really.
Time out. Before you ever went there, we've had reporters there reporting on genocide after genocide. And just because you put on a fucking safari helmet and looked at some poop doesn't give you the right to insult what we do. So continue. Continue.
I'm just saying that I'm not a journalist. I'm not there to report.
Obviously.
I'm just
Go ahead.
He went in there and did a great David Carr ass-kicking on the Vice guys.
But he was also always fair.
It's gonna be a pretty rugged story, and I want it to be fair, which is why I'm calling you.
David Carr, I think, understood social media and all of this new technology as it should be understood.
What could anyone possibly find useful in this cacophony of short burst communication? But at 52, I succumbed, partly out of professional necessity.
He certainly learned how to use social media. He certainly learned how to do Twitter in some very, very effective ways.
The real value of this service is listening to a wired collective voice.
First time I really had a conversation with him was when he was on my show the first time to talk about Night of the Gun. He had a way of sort of leaning back when he spoke to you and looking this way at you as you interviewed him. Let's see how this conversation goes before I fully invest myself.
But at the tender age of 31, I still had a year left before hitting rock bottom. A year left of being that guy, the violent, drug-snorting thug, before I found my way to this guy, the one with a family and a job at the New York Times.
Yes, there can be second acts. You can completely remake yourself without losing your soul.
I think his humanity was so great, and he was so humble because of his own past sins that made him human. It made him not judgmental of other people.
I think he saw his life as a gift. I think he saw his daughters and his wife and his calling, because that's what writing was for him, really.
He was a joy to be around. I mean, he made coming to work in this building just a lot more fun. Anywhere you went with him, was, to use his favorite word, a caper. It was an adventure.
Are you ready? It's a little bit of a brain buster.
I think for a young, emerging talent, a guy like David Carr taking you seriously is a big deal. It helped you take yourself seriously.
He truly was the first person who ever recognized my work as having any potential to have impact.
I didn't necessarily realize or appreciate at the time how lucky I was to have had him as an editor, as a mentor, because I learned so much. It was like he was like a one-man journalism school.
But I think those young people he touched, I think they are, you know, sparks that fell off his flame, and it's going to burn for a long time.
I will carry a piece of David with me for the rest of my life.
Guy who looked weird and out of place in a very staid newsroom like the New York Times, but he was the essence of the New York Times to me. It was great.
There are a few people in my life who I was happier to see in a room full of other people. It meant you were in the right place. David Carr's here. I must be in the right place.
Babs is riding over the hill like cavalry